The housing crisis in America has now reached a very dangerous tipping point. Families across the country are no longer just downsizing into smaller apartments. Many are being forced into something very different, living in RVs. Now, RVs used to represent freedom and adventure. Retirees with extra money and time would buy them to travel the country and enjoy life. The open road was their playground, but today an RV has sadly become the last resort for people who have nowhere else to go. For many, it's just one step away from being homeless. And what's most worrying is how fast this trend is spreading. Recent surveys show that about 500,000 Americans now live in RVs full-time. That's more than double the number from just a few years ago. Even more shocking, about 1/3 of them are raising children in these RVs. Imagine trying to cook meals, do homework, and celebrate birthdays in a space smaller than most people's garages. Most of these families make less than $75,000 a year. So this isn't some trendy lifestyle choice. For many, it's the only way they can keep a roof, any kind of roof, over their heads. We're talking about regular working people, folks on fixed incomes, disabled veterans, single parents doing their best to survive, people who never thought they'd end up here. Let me give you some real examples so you can understand what this looks like up close. One woman in Oregon once ran a successful daycare business. She was paying about $2,000 a month in rent for her house, but after a medical emergency drained her savings and she got evicted, everything collapsed. She and her kids now live in a 175-square-foot RV. When they can afford it, they park in campgrounds. When they can't, they live off-grid, bathing in rivers, boiling water to cook, and carefully rationing electricity. Every 2 or 3 weeks, they're forced to move again. For her, the RV isn't an adventure. It's survival. Another story comes from Kentucky. A grandmother sold her house to be closer to her family. But when she went to buy a new home, she was shocked. Prices had jumped so high that she couldn't afford a mortgage in retirement. Instead, she bought a $29,000 RV. Now she pays about $550 per month just to park at an RV park. It's cheaper than rent, but it's far from the retirement she dreamed of. And then there's a retired man in Tennessee. In his city of Chattanooga, the cheapest apartment he could find cost $1,200 per month. That was more than his fixed income could handle. So he used his savings to buy an old RV, but it's falling apart. His shower doesn't work, his fridge barely runs, and he's constantly patching leaks. He spends what little money he has not on traveling, but on endless repairs. These aren't rare stories anymore. They're becoming more and more common across the country. At first, living in an RV might sound cheaper, but here's the reality. It's not as affordable as people think. RVs are not designed for full-time living. Their air conditioners, plumbing, and appliances are built for short trips, not daily use. So when families live in them year-round, things break a lot. Repairs can be extremely expensive, and replacement parts aren't always easy to find. If you finance your RV, it gets even worse. Unlike houses, RVs lose value quickly, just like cars. That means you can easily end up owing more than your RV is worth, the same as being upside down on a mortgage. Then there's the problem of where to park. Many campgrounds have strict limits, often only allowing you to stay for 2 weeks. That forces families to keep moving, even if they don't want to. And while parking fees used to be cheap, they're rising fast too. Some parks charge hundreds of dollars each month just for the spot. So yes, the monthly cost can be less than renting a house. But the constant moving, the repairs, and the instability all add up, financially and emotionally. For families with children, this lifestyle can be heartbreaking. Imagine trying to get your kids to school when you're moving every couple of weeks. Imagine celebrating birthdays without enough space for even a small party. For many parents, that's the hardest part, knowing their kids are growing up without the stability they wanted to provide. But it's not all doom and gloom. Some families do find small silver linings in this lifestyle. For example, children in RV communities often spend more time outdoors, riding bikes, hiking trails, and exploring nature. They aren't glued to phones or tablets all day. Families sometimes grow closer because they're forced to spend more time together in small spaces. Some RV parks even become little communities where neighbors help each other out, sharing meals, watching each other's kids, or helping with repairs. It doesn't fix the bigger problem, but it does show human resilience. And most importantly, many families finally feel some financial relief. By lowering their housing costs, they can pay other bills, pay down debt, and maybe even save a little money. For families who felt crushed under rent, that's a huge relief. But even with those small positives, the bigger picture is worrying. Since 2019, the number of Americans living in RVs, vans, or even boats has jumped by 41%. You see this clearly in coastal cities like Sausalito, California, where many people now live full-time on small sailboats docked in marinas. It's cheaper than renting in San Francisco, but it comes with constant challenges, storms, repairs, and the stress of living one mistake away from disaster. Why is this happening? Because the math on housing simply doesn't work anymore. Right now, only about 30% of homes for sale are affordable to the median income household. That means 7 out of 10 families can't even consider buying. And for many renters, costs eat up more than 1/3 of their income, leaving almost nothing left for savings or emergencies. A lot of experts say we just need to build more homes. In fact, housing advocates claim the U.S. needs 3 to 4 million new homes to meet demand. But here's the catch. When prices start to fall, builders don't build more. They build less. Right now, about half the country is already seeing falling home prices. Builder confidence has dropped to its lowest level since 2012, right after the Great Financial Crisis. Mortgage delinquencies are creeping up, not just among risky subprime borrowers, but among regular middle-class families too. In July of 2025, more than 15% of pending home sales were canceled. Housing starts dropped by about 10%, and building permits dropped even more. Big builders are already pulling back. For example, KB Homes recently canceled about 10,000 lots because they didn't think profits would be high enough. So while people are desperate for more homes, the system is doing the opposite, slowing down construction. This shows the uncomfortable truth. The system doesn't actually want cheaper homes. It only works if prices keep rising. Think about it. The government relies on high property taxes, builders rely on high profits, and policymakers step in whenever prices start falling, trying to save the market. How do they do that? By propping it up with new programs, extending FHA loans from 30 years to 40 years, allowing mortgages backed by cryptocurrency, using rent and utility payments to boost credit scores, raising tax deductions for wealthy households, offering loans with 0% down. In some places, they've even hosted events where people walk in with no down payment, no credit check, and walk out pre-approved for a mortgage. It sounds like help, but really, it's just creating more debt. Families who couldn't afford homes before suddenly get loans, and when they struggle to pay, the government steps in again. The cycle continues and home prices stay inflated. Even with all those tricks, the cracks are showing. Take the Sunbelt, for example. Builder Lennar reported its average home price has fallen by 22%. By any standard, that's a housing crash, and prices will likely keep falling into 2026 because the real problem, affordability, hasn't been solved. To put it in perspective, Lennar's average selling price dropped from $491,000 in 2022 to $383,000 in 2025. That's a massive drop in just 3 years. Adjusted for inflation, the real decline is closer to 30 or even 40%. Builders are desperate to attract buyers. They're now offering record incentives, more than 14% of the final sales price on average. On a $450,000 home, that means giveaways worth about $64,000 just to close the deal. And this isn't just a southern problem. In Ohio, viewers are reporting big price drops in cities like Richmond, Akron, and Dayton. Houses are sitting unsold because sellers refuse to lower prices, while buyers wait on the sidelines. Even the Midwest, usually one of the strongest real estate markets, is starting to wobble. And while the Northeast has held up longer, history shows it won't stay immune forever. Smart buyers know this. Many are waiting patiently, preparing for a wave of foreclosures. Just like after the last crash, they're planning to scoop up homes at deep discounts. So here's the bottom line. America's housing crisis is now so severe that hundreds of thousands of people are living in RVs, vans, and even boats. Builders are pulling back. Government programs are keeping prices artificially high. And everyday families are getting squeezed harder and harder. Even with bailouts and incentives, the housing market is still cracking. Prices are falling, sales are collapsing, and families are being forced into desperate solutions. When owning a home feels out of reach and renting becomes impossible, an RV is no longer a symbol of freedom. It's a symbol of survival.